So I want to talk about why I think LaRussell's engineer was truly the one that was heaven sent, but I also want to talk about why I think some indie artists can run into these mishaps where they end up getting everybody to turn against them right as they're trying to cross over into the mainstream. But before we do, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. So in the case of LaRussell here, LaRussell's having a very rough 60-day stretch. Obviously, about a month and a half ago, he made some comments about Lil Wayne that many people took the wrong way. I understood what he was going for when he made the comments about Lil Wayne. All he was really saying is, even though he likes Lil Wayne, as he got older and his taste in music changed, and as he came into his own as an artist, he didn't view Wayne's music the same as he did when he was younger. He started to realize that even though Wayne did have some songs that were deep, Wayne also had a lot of other songs that really weren't talking about a whole lot, where and that wasn't really what Wayne was going for, of course, right? So, but people, they got mad about it. They took it as if he was dissing Lil Wayne and saying that everything Wayne has ever put out is terrible. And now you also have a situation a month later where LaRussell again unintentionally may have put his foot in his mouth to an extent to where he ends up having a clip go viral for all the wrong reasons, where he, in the start of the clip, he's alleging that his engineer warned him not to release a certain song and he didn't listen, and he was laughing about it in a very defiant manner, as if he's basically saying, hey, I gotta put this out no matter what, like I'm a revolutionary or whatever. And I don't believe that story, to be honest with you. I'll talk about why I don't believe it later, but still, assuming the story is true, he didn't listen to the engineer and he puts he performs the song Heaven Sent, where he's going with this very loose, not fleshed out idea of basically empathizing with very questionable people with questionable histories and saying that, hey, they were still heaven sent too. And people immediately and understandably, they pushed back against this and they said, nah, this isn't it. And LaRussell then decided that he wanted to double down and put out a video response, basically calling everybody idiots for not liking it and not understanding it. And people then chose to go even harder and started clowning him, which then prompted him to delete all his social media. And I don't know if he's ever coming back to social media. He probably will. He'll probably pop back up in like a week and a half or something like that. But to me, it's a very interesting series of events because to me, the engineer, if this engineer story is true, the engineer obviously had his best interest at heart, but this could be a case of an artist really feeling themselves too much. He had just recently signed the Rock Nation deal. So, and then also, a lot of blogs are pushing him more than ever now, which when artists start to get heavily pushed by mainstream outlets, that's never a coincidence. We got to remember he just signed a deal to link him to Rock Nation. So he now has those mainstream machine, the big machine pushing him behind him, obviously. And it's very interesting because I want to talk about why I don't believe this story that he says about the engineer, because I'm an artist, and if you're also an artist, you know that most engineers really never speak on how they feel about your music one way or another. Most engineers, if you go to a studio, now to be fair to LaRussell, maybe this specific engineer is somebody that he genuinely gets along with and has a good relationship with, and they're close enough to where this guy actually is willing to look out for him, right? Maybe that could be the case, right? But that's kind of rare, to be honest with you, because again, and this is not just me talking from my own experience, from the experience of a lot of artists. Like, when you're in a studio, most of these engineers that you end up working with in a studio session, they really don't care about you. They're not interested in your music. Many of them, they probably think you're whack, even if you're not whack, but you're just not their cup of tea. They don't like you. Like, most of them really don't say one way or another if they believe that you are good, if they believe that the song is good. They usually keep quiet. Now, of course, when you're not there, they'll talk trash about you or whatever, like most people do. But they very rarely will give input to the song that you're trying to make on the spot. That's usually not something they try to do a whole lot. So for LaRussell to find himself in a position where he has an engineer that actually allegedly that is invested enough to want to actually tell him like, yo, don't put that song out, that's definitely a gift, like that old expression, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. He definitely looked the gift horse in the mouth in that situation. He should have listened, but for whatever reason he decided not to. And look, when it comes to the song itself, ironically enough, the song had already been out for like a month. And this goes to show you that again, most people, they don't listen to deep cuts on albums or mixtapes. Like that's not a thing. Like people, again, most people are not music fans. They're just music consumers. So they just want to they want to be spoon fed whatever is trending on the Hot 100. That's it. They're not about to randomly listen to this deep cut, right? But obviously this went viral, so now it forced them to listen to this deep cut. And I went like many people, you go back to listen to the actual song itself and match it up with the performance to see maybe he delivered it better on the song and maybe it came off better in the song. And of course it did not, which it is what it is. Like for me, I'm not against him trying to attack very touchy subjects, very tricky subjects, but I am a big believer that when it comes to subjects that are that tricky, I think you should have more of a direct approach with what you're trying to get across, because I think I get what he's trying to get across, because basically my interpretation of what the song is basically him saying that, hey, it's fascinating that a higher power can create something that on one hand could be so beautiful, but then create something else that is so disgusting. A higher power can create one person that is so amazing and pure and just genuinely nice and well intentioned, and then on the other hand, that same higher power can create something or someone that is so evil to the core. And also, it kind of came off as if he was trying to basically say nobody's perfect. Everybody lives in a glass house and all of that. Basically, this is me trying to make sense of that song that he put out, really, like to kind of look at the bigger picture that he's trying to get across here. And again, I don't think it's the worst concept. I don't think it's the worst approach. I just think it was very unnecessary. And again, just poorly executed in my opinion, because if he would have started the song off by saying, hey, it's crazy that a higher power could create one person that's amazing and one person that's a piece of shit, I feel like then people might have digested it better. But for him to package it lyrically the way he did package it, where he's literally trying to he's trying to lump Martin Luther King and Malcolm X in the same bucket as Adolf Hitler. You know what I mean? Like, he's trying to lump them in the same bucket as Jeffrey Epstein. That's insane to me. Like, that's legitimately insane. That's not the way you should try to get that idea across, in my opinion. That people rightfully push back against that, because that does not sound right. Honestly, that doesn't really make much sense. And it feels like an example of somebody trying way too hard to be deep, right? Because we do have to remember also, right, we're only like a month or two removed from when he made the comments about Lil Wayne, saying a lot of Lil Wayne songs didn't have a whole lot of substance to it. So who knows? Maybe he made a song like this, tried to double down and try to sound as deep as he possibly could, knowing that now people are gonna look at his music more closely after his Lil Wayne comments. So it's a very weird situation. And then it led to LaRussell deleting his social media, which now is making him get even more backlash, because now people are basically saying, oh, he couldn't handle the pressure, he couldn't handle the fame. And it's not easy to deal with the situation he's dealing with. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm not making excuses for him, but still, like, you're talking about going from being somebody who was more of a niche type of artist who, didn't have a crazy big following, or didn't have a whole lot of mainstream attention, to in the past couple of months since joining Rock Nation, the dude is he's being posted everywhere. And unfortunately for him, it seems like he keeps unintentionally rubbing people the wrong way, right? Like, and it is crazy to me though that ever since he linked up with Rock Nation, it seems like his PR has gotten worse and worse, which you would think it would be the opposite. You would think once you link up with those type of mainstream connections that your PR would get better and better, but hey, for whatever reason, it's not working out. I think this could have been resolved a lot easier if he would have either one, not explained himself in the first place, or if he had just put out an apology video just saying, hey man, I messed up here. I thought that I was getting this message across right, but clearly I didn't get it across as well as I was trying to get it across. But the fact that he put this out and then doubled down on it, and then once he doubled down on it and got pushback, he then deleted his socials altogether. That's just, to me, that's just a big, just a big, big pot of gumbo fuckery right there. That's just not an ideal situation that any artist would want to find themselves in. And this is also the downside to trying to cross over into that mainstream audience, right? Where it makes you also think twice about some of the things that some of these bigger artists do have to deal with on a daily basis, right? Like, you think about some of these people like Drake's or whatever, regardless of how you feel about Drake, people like that who on a daily basis, millions of people are just dragging him through the mud with no remorse. Where, and a lot of indie artists may not necessarily have to deal with that, right? Most of the time, indie artists are typically frustrated because they feel underrated, especially if they're not making a whole lot of money. You feel unappreciated, and you're just frustrated. It's not going how you would like. But you do also have to realize that the opposite of this spectrum is you're under a very, 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 very big microscope where every single thing is being overanalyzed. All this stuff is being brought back up years later, or even if nothing's there, people might just straight up lie. Like, just a lot of stuff that you then have to deal with that smaller artists really don't have to put up with like that. So I think there is a beauty to being that sort of artist in the middle, right? Where, all right, you're popular enough to have a decent following on social media and make a full-time living on making content, but at the same time, you're not mainstream enough to where people are going to overanalyze any quote that you have to the point where they tear you apart for a statement that was really just a big misunderstanding. But that's just me. Either way, let me know